Okay, is that a little bit better? I don't know what happened there. Don't know how that microphone got muted. I've been sitting here talking the whole time. Let's see what's going on. Let's see if I have sound now. Do I have sound now? How about now? Okay, now we have sound. Okay, good. I don't know what happened. I really do not know what happened. Let me take you behind the scenes here, okay? Let me do a quick screen share. When I'm sitting here, this is what I see while I'm sitting here doing this show. I do the pop out chat and I bring it up and put it right below the camera so that everybody can see, or so that I can. It looks like I'm looking at the camera as I'm looking for comments, and I keep looking back up and down and everything. But I have another piece of software over here. It's a broadcast software, and this is going to look weird. It's going to do a little tunnel vision thing. Just bear with me. Here's my mixer over here. I've got all of my sources in here. I've got my webcam. I've got my desktop monitor, my logo up here in the corner. I've got my microphone plugged in. Everything is great. I look over here. Here's my microphone down here. Somehow it got muted. I don't touch this. I don't know what's going on. It's just one of these weird things. I don't get it. Oh, well, you didn't want to know about that. You don't care about that. It's, what can I say? It's just one of those little annoyances. I don't know how settings change. Now, having said that, Windows just pushed another big update to Windows 10. That may have changed some settings, which is, one of the reasons why I did that live stream earlier this week that I immediately made unlisted and everything. Okay, Steve is saying that it's the cam mic. Well, if it's the cam mic, I don't know. I got all kinds of things going on. I don't know. So, welcome to live broadcasting, man. You think you're in control? You've only done it, let's see, 65 times. And yeah, Troy, you're absolutely right. It's still 2020. So, what can you say? But see, that's the thing about it, Troy. I I got a new camera, and I know when you change out cameras, it's going to change settings. I have to go back into that software and get rid of the old camera, add the new camera in. Then that may change the audio because it wants to use the mic that's in the camera. And, so a lot of things get changed up. I get that. I understand that. But that's why I did that live stream, was to try to get everything straightened out before today. And still something happened. So, all right. Speaking of new camera and everything else, I don't want to shout him out if he doesn't want to be shouted out, but I see he's now in the chat. And if you don't mind, I will give you a shout out, but I won't mention your name unless you give me permission, to the person that sent me the camera. So I just got to say, whether he minds if I say something about him or mention him or not, I just got to say that you guys are the absolute best. And I mean that sincerely. Folks have, donated to the channel and supported the channel in many ways. You've gone to the website and purchased the merch, the t-shirts, the coffee mugs. There's been a couple of hiccups, right, Norm? But you've donated and you've purchased the merch, and a few of you have gotten a hold of me and sent me things, and you guys are just the best. And I consider myself very, very lucky. I appreciate every one of you. Thank you for being so cool. I mean, this is weird for me because I'm just some guy, and for this many people, I don't talk about it. I don't, I don't really mention it. but I'm just getting ready to go over 23,000 subscribers, probably today or tomorrow, and it's absolutely nuts to me. This whole thing is just weird because, I started doing this so that I started doing this because I got tired of typing out the same explanations over and over again in like Facebook or in forums. So I just figured it's easier to give somebody a link to a video when they ask the question. So that's what I started doing. But for this many people to care enough about anything I have to say, it's just strange to me. It's really weird. But you guys are the best. Thank you. He has not said that, he wants me to shout him out. So one of the viewers sent me this box of some of the coolest stuff. And it was really, really unexpected. I mean, we're talking about a laser etched sports tumbler. I mean, this thing is cool. It's got the built-in straw, the whole thing. It's great. I mean, I love this thing. Then there was more. Because of the video I did on making the lids for the tea jars, he sent my wife a pound of very, very good tea, and she absolutely loves it. I thank you for that too. Then, last and certainly, absolutely by no means least, he sent a very, very nice webcam. I mean, this thing is cool as heck. So I don't know if you can see any difference or anything. I mean, my buddy Steve Nealon over there from Harneo Media, he says that he can just about read the lettering on the postal box here behind me. I mean, we all know that it says priority mail, those of us in the U.S., but he says you can just about read that. This is one heck of a cool camera. So I can thank you personally. Thank you very, very much. That was way up above and beyond. I mean, this is just wild to me. So you guys are the best. And when we hit, I'm not announcing it because I know that there are people who just float around YouTube, and when they see somebody's going to do a giveaway for a subscriber plateau, a threshold, they just subscribe to the channel so they can, get in on the contest and then go away. Well, I'm not going to do a contest. What I'm going to do when I hit 25,000 subscribers is I'm going to do a random drawing. And I'm going to do a giveaway to some folks who are subscribed to me. I don't want to make an announcement that I'm going to do a subscriber giveaway and then have a bunch of people jump in and subscribe just so they can probably win something. I want to try to give something back to you folks who have been here the whole time. So that's a lot of inside baseball that you were probably not interested in at all. So let's go ahead and get this thing going proper here. We've already been on for like 11 minutes, so thank you to everybody who is joining me today. And we'll get into some of your questions in just a minute. Something I want to do with these live streams, you're going to notice a little bit of a change, is I'm going to introduce something, a technique or a method or something cool in the software. And then I'm going to go back after this becomes a regular video, and I'm going to add to the title. So this is like live stream number 65. I'm going to show you just one of the cool little things that you can do in the software that doesn't really warrant its own video, but it is something that's neat. And then I'll go back and I'll change the title to include that method or technique. And then down below in the description, I'll put a timestamp so people can jump past my audio problems and other stuff like that and go straight to that little technique. Let me go ahead and bring up Aspire, and we'll go ahead and we'll get into that now. And what I'm going to show you is some pretty neat shortcuts, some keyboard shortcuts. Some of you may be aware of these things. Some of you may not even know that they exist. But there is an entire list of keyboard shortcuts that'll help you to streamline your workflow and just make things a heck of a lot easier. Now, I don't think even the developers know all of the shortcuts, and everybody needs a little bit of a refresher, but they did make these keyboard shortcuts easy to find, and I'll show you that in just a minute. So let's go ahead and get a vector out here, and I'm just going to do something simple so that we can see it here. And I'll go ahead and I got a rectangle. I'll go into node editing. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to insert a point. The keyboard shortcut is I. So I'll come over here and use the keyboard shortcut I. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to delete this point. So we have a little odd shape here so that you can see that which direction it's facing. And I'll hit N for node editing. And I'm going to come over here and align it vertically in the center. So we have this little oddball shape here. There are some keyboard shortcuts that you can use to mirror this object. And it's very, very simple. If I decide that I have this beveled edge here on the wrong side, it needs to be over on this side, I can just tap the letter, I can select it, tap the letter H, and its position in X and Y stays the same, but it mirrors it over and just reverses it. Now, that by itself is pretty cool, and that's just the letter H on my keyboard. Now, that in and of itself is pretty cool, but you can combine that with more keys. And I'm not going to go through the whole list of all of the permutations of this because there are many. But if I add the control, hold down the control key on the keyboard and tap the letter H, it makes a copy that is mirrored that I can now just scoot out of the way. So I have two. So it created a copy that is mirrored horizontally, which is why we're tapping the letter H. That stays at the same X and Y position as the original. Let me go ahead and delete that and select this again. If I wanted to mirror this vertically, I just tap the letter V and it mirrors it vertically. Its position in X and Y doesn't change. It just mirrors the object. What was the top is now the bottom, and the bottom is now the top. And by extension, I can come along and do something odd like hold down Control and either tap V for vertical. I'll hold down Control and tap Z to undo that. Or I can Control H, select it first. Hold down Control and tap the letter H, and it copies it horizontally. So just one of those neat little things in keyboard shortcuts. Now, if you add in the Shift key, select the object, hold down Control, then hold down Shift at the same time, and tap the letter H, it creates a copy on the opposite side of the material from the original. It's a very cool little way of getting something done without spending a lot of time. A real easy keyboard shortcut to use rather than coming over to the mirror icon and using the form. Now, that form is not difficult, but this can really speed up the work. And you can use the Control-Shift-H to go horizontal, Control-Shift-V to go vertical. So it's just one of those little keyboard shortcuts that can really shorten the amount of time it takes to get in and design a project. I mean, you can draw half of a pattern over here, then select it all, Control Shift H, and put the other half over, and copy that half over here and join them at the center. It really helps streamline the process. Now, I mentioned earlier that they make it real easy to find these keyboard shortcuts. I just go up here to the Help menu, and the second one down is Keyboard Shortcuts. It opens up an HTML page on a web browser, and here is a list of all of these keyboard shortcuts. And you can see they've got it broken down into the drawing section. Come down a little further. There are keyboard shortcuts when you're in toolpaths. There are keyboard shortcuts when you're in various modules like the laser or V-transfer. There are interface keyboard shortcuts. And if you look over here, each of these is a link. So you can kind of scroll through here and figure out what you're doing, what you want to look into. And let's say document variables. I click on document variables and it takes me right down to that section of this document that has to do with the keyboard shortcuts. It's a real simple, easy way of getting in here and figuring all of these keyboard shortcuts out that you wouldn't normally be able to do. And like I said, I don't think the developers know all of these keyboard shortcuts. There are a ton of them, but they really help out. They really make it easier for you to streamline your workflow and get the job done. Now, I'm looking over here. RB Woodwork says I have the keyboard shortcuts printed out, but I'm a long way from memorizing them. Yeah, I definitely have not got them memorized, you know. So, but it's just a cool little thing. It's great. And, you know, so what the heck? It was just something I figured I would throw in there, show you guys a little something in the software, and next week I'll do something else. And so what I'm going to do is, after this becomes a regular video, I'll go back and I'll change the title. I'll add keyboard shortcuts to the title, live stream number 65. And then I'll do a timestamp down in the description that'll take you straight to that section we just did. So now let's get into your questions. And I apologize for the goofiness of today's live stream here. So let's see what's going on out here. I'm scrolling down the list here to see what's going on. And I know there were a couple of questions. Yeah, Norman Peterson, glad you got your coffee cup, by the way. Sorry about that. The new upgrade of Windows 10 changed all of my settings and defaults. Lots of trouble. Yeah, me too. And that's why I came back and did that live stream earlier, as I said, and thought I had it straightened out. Turns out I didn't. Okay, David Pingle is asking, do you know anything about creating gadgets in Vectric? Do you mean creating your own gadgets? If that's what you mean, no, I have absolutely no idea. I know that it's called Lua, L-U-A. I have no idea what that means. I'm not a programmer at all. I know that there is a way to do it. And in fact, if you go over to Vectric's website, or not website, YouTube channel, as part of the annual user groups meeting for 2020 that was online, they did a video on creating your own gadgets. So if you are of a programmer state of mind and you want to get in and make a gadget to do something, they did a video on how to do that. It's just way above my head. There's two things going on when you get into programming language or you get into electronics. It doesn't take long before the person giving that little class starts to sound like Charlie Brown's school teacher to me. I just lose it, you know, because I just don't know enough about it. but there are ways of creating your own gadgets. Now, if you mean, do I know anything about creating files using those gadgets? Very few. I don't use them very often. Mainly because I want to learn or try to learn how to do it in the software myself. And I'm not one of those people that thinks that that's cheating, because I can understand the reason for using it. If you just want to go in, get it done, boom, be done, fine. I want to try to figure out how to do it. So I tend to not use the gadgets. Sometimes you can't help it, but no, I don't really have any experience using the gadgets. I hope that answers your question on that. Let's see. Richard Weiss says, I have a question for you. What was the purpose of putting those truncated tabs on the bowl since 3D tabs were put in? Okay. The reason for adding those tabs, and I assume you're talking about the 9-inch bowl that I cut out in a couple of videos back. The reason for putting those truncated tabs on the profile toolpath was so when I did the profile toolpath, they wouldn't, if I didn't put those truncated tabs in there, the profile would have cut right through them. And I didn't want that. I wanted to leave those 3D tabs, but then I had to come back after the 3D model was cut and cut the profile toolpath. If I wouldn't have added those tabs, that profile toolpath would have cut through those 3D tabs and the part would have come loose. So that's why I did it that way. Hope that answers that question. Let's see here. Let's see, Rich H wants to know, what's the best way to create alignment pins in V-Carve for tiling in the Y-axis to cut a long project? Okay, I have not done any tiling. I haven't needed to, but what I'm going to do is, it'll be in the new year. I'm going to go ahead and just tile a project, not even needing to do one. I'm going to go ahead and tile a project just so I have that video up and available to demonstrate how it's done. What that means is I've got to do some R&D of my own, and I've got to tile a few projects. I've never done it. I just have a philosophical problem with attempting to show somebody something I've never done myself. So I'm going to get out, I'll go ahead and I'll tile a couple of projects, cut those projects, then I'll do a video on it. But right now I do not have a video on tiling. I would recommend getting into the software and looking at Vectric's tutorial on tiling. Their tutorials are very, very good. So, in fact, that's where I learn a good percentage of what I know, is through their tutorials. And then I practice those things before I attempt to make a video. So, okay. Robert Hodge wants to know, is Mark just a tad blurry? Objects behind him look clearer than he does. No, that's just my face. I'm sorry. Let's see. Okay, Mark Kulig wants to know, do you have a video on how to cut waves in a board? No, I don't. I don't have anything specifically on that, but in V-Carve you could do it using the molding toolpath. In Aspire, there's probably a dozen ways of doing it. I can do a video on, I've been asked before if I've got a video on waving flag, and I don't have one. I will do one in the new year. I don't know what I'm going to do with all these things, because when I create something, draw up a design, 9 times out of 10, it's a design I want to cut out. So, but I will do a flag. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but I'll do a flag. So, okay, let's see. Lewis Denton says, I'm using Vectric desktop with a 25-inch square work area and a Onefinity CNC with a 35-inch square work area. When setting up the machine in the tool database, machine management, do I use 25 or 35? In machine management, that's entirely up to you. The size is dictated by the size is dictated by the software. It's not going to let you go larger than that. So I would just put in on machine management, I would put in the machine I have, because that's not going to change. Your software version may change. So if you upgrade to V-Carve Pro from desktop and you merge the database, your old database, into the new desktop, or excuse me, V-Carve Pro, everything is set. You don't have to go back and change anything. So I would just put in what you have. That's just me. So, let's see. Custom Creations says, is it only me, or does it seem like the Vectric climb conventional seems to change? Meaning sometimes it is not the proper direction. Any info on this? Well, climb cutting and conventional cutting is a change in direction. I don't really understand the question. If you set something for climb cutting, it's going to move. Let's see. For climb cutting, it will move in a counterclockwise direction. For conventional cutting, it would move in a no, I got that backwards. For a climb cut, it would move in a clockwise direction. And for a conventional cut, it would move counterclockwise. It has to do with the direction of rotation of the bit versus the grain. And it's, personally, I do climb cuts. For a long time, I was doing nothing but conventional cuts, but I didn't really notice a huge difference until I got into really highly figured woods. So I now just go ahead and do climb cuts, and that's all. Except for, well, I can't think of any exceptions. In a manner of, depending upon how you look at it, depending upon what you're doing it, there are times that a tool path, it doesn't matter if it's climb or conventional, because as it makes a pass in one way, it's going to cut climb, or excuse me, cut conventional, then it'll come back and cut climb, then conventional, then climb. It just, sometimes it doesn't really matter. But overall, in general, I will climb cut. So I don't know if that answers your question or not. But, so let's see. Jim Morgan says upgraded Aspire to the newest version. Now the chamfer gadget doesn't work. Can I change back to the previous version? You can, but I don't know why you would. What you need to do is go to Vectric's website and look for the chamfer gadget that is compatible with the newest version. And it doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes when they excuse me, sometimes when they do a major upgrade, like from version 10 to version 10.5, one of the casualties is the gadgets for version 10 no longer works with 10.5. But they put out a new gadget that's compatible with 10.5. So I would go back to the Vectric website and look for the gadget for 10.5. It's a pain, and I know that, but that has worked so far. Everybody that I know of who has had a problem with a gadget not working in the new version has gone over and found the proper gadget that's compatible with the new version and clears everything right up. So, let's see. Let's see. Haas says I use UGS, and when I try to tram surface my spoil board, it only does part of it, then stops before it's finished. I have no idea why. Yeah, I don't use UGS, but just for clarity, tramming is adjusting the router or spindle in relation to your gantry. Tramming has nothing to do with the spoil board. You tram the router or the spindle so that you are straight up and down, side to side, and front to rear. That's tramming. Surfacing the spoil board should be done after you tram so that your bit is cutting nice and flat and not cutting like this. So tram the spindle / router, then surface the spoil board. So let's see. Warren's Corner says, have you ever thought about doing Mach 3 videos for about 4 seconds? I don't know enough about Mach 3 to try to teach somebody how to use it. Mach 3 has so many features, bells, whistles, and additional features that I have never touched, that I would be lost if I try to get into it. I know what I need to know to make it work for me. But Mach 3 is one of those fully featured programs that works for CNC routers for wood, foam, plastics, things like that. It will also run a lathe. It will run a mill. It will run all kinds of different tools. So some of those features are not applicable to everything. I don't get in and play around with settings and investigate Mach 3. I know how to connect my machine to it, how to set it up, how to configure it, and add a couple of accessories here and there. That's about it. It's one of those cases of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So I leave it alone. One thing I will say about Mach 3 is back it up. And I mean, I just back up the entire Mach 3 folder onto a flash drive, and that flash drive is in here in the house in our little fireproof box. And I have it backed up on another computer. Should that one die, I can take the other computer out, plug it in, and get back going again. So just back it up for safety so you have a copy of it. And I don't know anything about UGS, so I would be the wrong person to ask there. Let's see. James, love the mustache. So do I. Thank you for noticing. Let's see. Richard Poulin says, I'm thinking of getting an air spindle. You talked about it a while ago. Have you decided the one you're going to get? No, I have not. I've got to leave that for down the road. I've got to get the shed built first. I don't have 220 volt service or 240 volt service in my shop, so it would be a waste for me to get one now. I have no place to put it and no way to use it. So it's just one of those things. I haven't picked out which model or which brand I'm going to get yet. It's kind of up in the air. And the only reason I'm going to go with an air-cooled spindle is because I don't want to be dealing with coolant. We've got such temperature changes around here. It can be, 0 degrees one day and 70 the next. I just don't want to be messing with coolant. So I'm going to get with a air-cooled spindle. Okay, let's see. Custom Creation says, I know the direction it should be going for a certain setting, but it seems that depending upon what type of cut you choose, your selection does not go in the direction you choose. Okay, and this is in reference to climb cutting versus conventional cutting. Yeah, that is true. If you're cutting to the inside of a vector, climb versus conventional will go in opposite directions. If you're cutting to the outside of a vector, climb cut is going to go clockwise. If you're cutting to the inside, it's going to go counterclockwise. It's kind of like whether on a handheld router, are you holding the router with the bit pointing down, or is the router mounted in a table with the bit pointed up? Because which direction and which side of the material you run, which side of the bit you run the material on is going to change. So I can see what you mean now. I've not really run into any issues because I think it's the direction remains the same in a pocket. I may be wrong there. Let me take a look real quick here. In a pocket toolpath, yeah, you do have a choice of climb or conventional if you're using the offset and the raster method. I really haven't run across that issue of whether it's climb cutting or conventional cutting. It's always worked just fine for me. So, hmm, I don't know. Okay, RB Woodwork wants to know, can stars be edited as a group or selected together as a group? It depends on what you're trying to do. You can, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to enlarge the size of the group as a whole, you can set the selected object size as a group, but it will resize everything. It'll not only resize each individual star, it'll resize the arrangement of that 50 star field is what I imagine you're working on. If you're wanting to change the size of the stars without changing the size of the arrangement, you need to ungroup them. And let's see, I did a video on resizing multiple items at once. And I'll put a link to that. Let's go ahead and make a note. I'll put a link to that down in the description. All right. I'll put a link to that in the description box of this video as soon as it becomes a video. There is a way to edit them as a group, and there's a way to edit them individually. And I assume you're talking about resizing. If you're talking about doing any other changes like that, generally speaking, what you'll have to do is ungroup them, select one, delete the rest, and make your modifications to that star, then redo your array. But you can edit the size, and I did a video on that. I'll put a link in the description of this as soon as it becomes its regular video. Let's see. Custom Creation says, I know the directions which it should go for a certain setting, but it seems, I think we already talked about. No, there we go. Either way, climb cut will chop into the wood. Conventional will cut out of the wood and may cause chipping. Yeah, that's true. It's just confusing. I cut acrylic in one direction is not as nice, and I have to choose a different direction depending on what type of cut I'm doing. No matter what, your choice should be exactly that. I agree with that. And you know what? Maybe shoot a email to Vectric Tech Support. I don't cut acrylic, but I would shoot an email to Vectric Tech Support because maybe there's something that I'm not aware of and you're not aware of that we need to be doing, depending upon which toolpath it is. So, let's see. Hoss, I'm getting the alarm because the hard limits was turned on. I was told to type. Okay, again, I have never used UGS. I would head over into, look for UGS support forums or support communities and talk with folks who use that software. I have absolutely zero idea about those commands. I've never used it. So, see, Jim Morgan just downloaded the only version of the chamfer gadget as you suggested. It failed also. So I guess Vectric will have to resolve. Yes, I would send them tech support a letter, an email rather, and ask them to help you guide through. Maybe there's something that I'm not sure about, So let's see. Jim Hester says, thinking about experimenting with V-carving in a worn plaque blank that has a thin veneer of some kind of foil, aluminum, I guess. Do I need to use an aluminum cutting bit or would regular bits be okay? I think regular bits will work in aluminum. It's more to do with feeds and speeds. I think. I don't cut metals. Regular bits do get used in aluminum. It's more about cooling. I know the material you're talking about. I have never used it. I don't know if there's anything to. I don't know if there's anything to watch out for when cutting that material, and I can't think of the name of it. But I'm sorry I'm not a lot of help today, but there's a lot of things that I've never done. So I'm just, getting into it. And that's what's going on with part of this here is I'm doing some things I've never done before. And when we come back at the new year, I'm going to share those experiences. So, holy cow, I've been on for 42 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and end this right now. I want to say thank you to everybody. I hope I got some of your questions answered. But again, I'm not a Vectric expert. I am not a CNC expert. I'm just trying to help folks avoid the mistake that I have made and continue to make. So I will dig into these links and get them put up. And again, I'll change the title and get a timestamp done as soon as this becomes a regular video. It's always an adventure to talk with you guys because you keep me on my toes. I just want to say that you guys are, again, the best audience a guy could ever hope for. You really are awesome. It still freaks me out, but if it means meeting up with you guys and getting to interact with you like this, well worth it. Thank you for everything. Thank you for your continued support. And I don't know what I'm going to talk about next week, but I hope to see you then. Until then, have a great Sunday. Go out in the shop and make some chips, and y'all take care. Have a good one. Take care.